Greetings, class. If you haven't already, please download and or print the handouts that I attached to the email where I sent you this link. If you haven't done that yet, you might want to hit pause before going any further and get those handouts. The purpose of this brief video is to reinforce some of the concepts that we started working with at our last class period, specifically moving from the calculation of Pearson's R into the regression equation, specifically the regression coefficients A and B. Those regression coefficients A and B are both born out of Pearson's R. They can be thought of as an extension, in a sense, of Pearson's R. So the first handout that I want to call your attention to is called the regression equation, and that's also the name of the file, the PDF file that I sent you, and you received it in class if you've been in class the last 2 or 3 times, and it looks like this. It says the regression equation at the top, and then it expresses the regression equation y equals a plus b times x, and if you look closely, you'll see at the top that it has the formula for the calculation of b, the slope, which to do that, as you can see from the formula, you take Pearson's R, the value for Pearson's R, and you multiply that by the dividend of the standard deviation for your y variable by your standard deviation for your x variable. So you take those two standard deviations, standard deviation for y, standard deviation for x, take the standard deviation for y, divide it by the standard deviation for x, then multiply that by your value for R, and then that's b. You can also see the formula for calculating A. A equals the mean of your y variable minus b, and you just calculated b up above, the mean of your y variable minus your value for b times the mean of your x variable. Now, another sheet that I sent you, which you've also received, although I don't think I passed out the key, but we've been working with it in class, is called Sheet A Key. That's the name of the file, and it looks like this. This might look familiar. It's the data that we've been working with, but I've included the answers or to the math, as you can see. I simply took each x and multiply it by its corresponding y. Also, as I pointed out before, you can see at the bottom of this page you have the mean for your x variable, which is 5. You have the standard deviation for your x variable, which is 4.497. You have the mean for your y variable, which is 8.1. And you have the standard deviation for your y variable, 2.025. So between these several pieces of information, the sum of x times y, which is 480, as well as your means and your standard deviations here and here, you have all the information that you need to plug it into the formula for R. Now, I realize I'm going fairly quickly because the purpose of this video is not to calculate R. That's something we've been doing, and we're going to do another example. But take a moment, in fact, hit pause if you like, to make sure that you know and understand where each of these pieces of information came from. Where 480 came from, which is right here, divided by n, 10 minus mean of your x variable times the mean for your y variable, standard deviation for your x variable by your standard deviation for your y variable, and as we've been talking about in class, we end up with a correlation of 0.824, which can be described as strong and positive. So look that sheet over, and like I said, make sure you understand where each of those pieces of information come from. Once you have the value for Pearson's R, which in this case has been given to you, it's 0.824. That's your value for Pearson's R. There appears to be a strong and positive relationship between exercise and sleep. Okay, it's important not to lose sight of the variables that we're working with. Now you're in a position, you have all the information you need to calculate the regression coefficients B and A. All right, so I went ahead and I did that for you. As you can see from this sheet, I simply repeated the formula for B, which you already have and which we've gone over in class. B equals the value we got for Pearson's R times the dividend of standard deviation y by standard deviation x. That's the same formula that we just went over before. And here's where I plugged in the information. You may recall that our value for R is 0.824. And then I plugged in the standard deviations where they belong. Standard deviation of y is 2.025. That came from the sheet. You were given that before. Divided by standard deviation of x, 4.497. I can't help but wonder if in some cases the math problems were coming from people not placing the standard deviations in the right spot. It's important to remember that standard deviation of y is divided by the standard deviation of x. So moving down a step, if we divide standard deviation of y by standard deviation of x, or 2.025 by 4.497, we get a value of 0.450. So Pearson's R, 0.824, which we got from our other sheet, times 0.450 is 0.371. That's our B, 0.371. Then, if then we're in a position where we can calculate A. All right. Formula for A. It's the same as it was before. A equals the mean for your y variable minus your value for B, which we just found, 0.371, times the mean for your x variable, or 5. The next step, I just plugged in the correct information. A equals the mean of y, which is 8.1, that was given to you, minus B times the mean of x, or 0.371 times 5. Solving, A equals 8.1 minus 1.855, or A equals 6.245. So now we have B and we have A, and we're in a position then to create the regression equation, which is where this is going to end for now. And here's where I did that. You can see at the top of this page, I just repeated the regression equation, which we've been working with for a few days, y equals a plus b times x, and I just substituted in, as you can see, substituted in the value for a, which we just calculated, 6.245, plus the value for b, 0.371. Or, in this case, using these data, using the relationship, or testing the relationship between amount of hours we sleep, or excuse me, amount of hours we exercise and hours spent sleeping, the regression equation is y equals 6.245 plus 0.371x, A and B. Now, as I mentioned a couple times in class already, regression is an extremely powerful tool. It's a statistical tool that allows us to predict values of our dependent variable using values for our independent variable, and that's where this is going to go next. But for right now, the main thing I want you to do is make sure you understand how to use these formula, the formula for Pearson's R, and how you then arrive at B and A. That's the purpose of this video, and if you need some additional help, it is my hope that you watch this video multiple times, or feel free to make an appointment with Matt Krieger, my GTA, and of course myself as well. And always remember that Savannah Porter, the supplemental instructor for this class, is available for help as well. So it is my sincere hope that you avail yourself of those services. They're there to help you. I hope this has been helpful as well, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday.